The last day of a photography trip is always a little sad. Our time in Northern Washington was coming to an end, and the weather on the last day decided to match the mood. In today's video, I wanted to share some techniques that I've developed over the years for shooting on days where the weather and light is not ideal. And the first thing is to try to go somewhere or experience something completely new. This was actually the first time either of us had been on a ferry like this, so it was fun to see how it all worked and go through the process. Being somewhere you've never been before can be such a great way to break out of a funk with photography. It doesn't have to be a place that's far away or exotic, just somewhere you've never been. It feels like all of your senses are heightened and you're just observing and finding all these details and things that you've never seen, so naturally you're more compelled to document them. And there's sort of this lack of a specific goal and kind of like an innocence to the photos that come through in your first time visiting somewhere. And a lot of the time, I think that initial vision and documentation yields better results than when you overthink the best technical way of shooting a scene. The second tip is to try to create contrast in your images by shooting them from the shadows. And what I mean is actually physically moving yourself to a darker area and shooting towards an area that's much brighter. After taking a look around and walking through the ferry, we ended up spending the first half of the journey in this outside area that was nice and quiet and offered more opportunity for creating contrast in the photos because of the lack of overhead lighting and the amount of these open air windows that were there to work with. Typically, if you have gloomy conditions, you can find success by adding some of these dark elements to the foreground, or even by using them simply to frame your shots, making them feel much more three-dimensional and adding depth when nice light and a nice light source isn't there to help in that department. It can also help to think of these elements you can add to the composition as sort of shapes or layers. The next one is fairly simple but worth mentioning. Find artificial light sources. They can come in a variety of types, colors, and strengths, and can honestly be really fun to include in your images, especially if you don't normally do it. It's a nice change of pace. There's arguably no better solution for a lack of light than, well, turning on a light or finding one. Later on the ride, we made our way inside while I had a roll of Cinestill 800T loaded to get some of that fluorescent light, halation-filled goodness. The next technique is probably my favorite of the bunch, looking for characters. Few things are more powerful at conveying a sense of story than humans. Including a main character or characters in your compositions can do a great deal to help create a sense of wonder. Mystery, I suppose, is a word that comes to mind. This empty booth is fine. I don't love it, to be honest. It's also underexposed. But this image is one of my favorites of the day. It immediately conveys so much more emotion with the mystery couple that's sitting in the booth together on this rainy day. This image is also an example of combining many of those concepts into one photo. Artificial light, characters, foreground, shapes, and layers. Really happy with how this one turned out. After a few minutes, I was absolutely sweating. They keep it pretty toasty in these things. So we went back out to the open area to get some fresh air and enjoy the rest of our trip to the destination for the day, the town of Friday Harbor, located on San Juan Island. The entire ferry ride was just over an hour each way. This entire area was just so beautiful and full of places that I'd love to visit one day. Sunsets are rare out here, but man, I was just dreaming of how pretty and incredible it would be to catch one. Only one example here because I shot primarily color negative film on this day, but a helpful approach can be to completely remove the expectation or concern about color and focus on creating interesting images in black and white. Oftentimes, combining this with some heavy contrast adjustments in post can yield some interesting results that you might not have otherwise taken because the color palette was boring or ugly in that scene. As we pulled into Friday Harbor and made our way off the ferry, we immediately noticed just how quiet the streets were. Of course, we were here in the off season, hence why the ferry was also so empty. I will say this area though is where I struggled the most to make any images that I actually liked. I think my pre-thought out vision of the things I wanted to shoot, like all the colorful buildings and sort of busy activities and such happening on the docks, kind of kept me a little bummed out when I wasn't able to shoot those scenes at their full potential. We spent a while just walking around and sort of switched gears to embrace the final tip I have for this video, which is, if all else fails, stop focusing on making great images and start enjoying the simple process of documenting your day. A bad photo day doesn't have to mean that you have a bad day. Enjoy yourself, make good memories, and take some photos along the way so that you remember it all later in life. It's okay to not take your next portfolio-worthy shot on every outing. We eventually grabbed a coffee from that little cafe that I shot a photo of earlier. Well, wait a minute. I had a coffee. Jillian had a matcha latte, which I really tried to advise her not to do. And yeah, she didn't like it. I mean, literally, I don't understand who could ever like this drink. It's basically drinking grass. Like maybe a baby cow would probably love it, I would assume, because they like milk and grass. I mean, yeah. As we were getting back onto the ferry, Jillian snagged a handful of shots on her roll of Superia 400, and wow, I really love these. So here are all the keepers from this gloomy day of shooting. I think this one and this one are probably my favorites. All right, and probably this one too. So here we were again on the ferry for what was the last hour of our long weekend getaway. For those of you who have tuned in to all 3 episodes about this trip, thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear what your favorite scene or image was from this series in the comments below. As always, if you have any questions about the trip or any of the methods that I talked about in this video, please don't hesitate to ask. Take care of yourselves out there, and I will see you in the next one.